Man told me to quit, but God never did. Welcome to the Weekday Refill, which is about the resistance that I felt from the people around me, my family and friends, and my relentless pursuit of obedience over man's approval. You've been following along so far. Parts 1 and part 2 really talk about how I've called to be an interior designer and how I pursued that call and went from being a pre-med major at Spelman, pursuing a career as a pediatric cardiologist, to actually being called to be an interior designer and leaving and transferring from Spelman to the Art Institute and finding out that, whoa, this is what I was actually created for. And you would think, at least I did, okay? I did, as a young believer, that the first threshold of resistance that I felt from my stepfather was going to be the first and only level of resistance that I felt throughout my 20-year journey. Survey says that's a lie. It was not at all the only resistance that I felt. I will say this before I go into today's share, that resistance is a good thing. It actually causes you to grow, it causes you to mature, and it causes you to know that you know that you know that you know that you know that you're doing what God calls you to do, when God is supporting you in that place of resistance. Now, sometimes we resist things and the Lord is like, I'm not in that. And so you must know the difference. And I know that God was in this. And I got so much more resistance than just from my stepfather. I got resistance from one of my mother's really good friends. And remember, not too long before I left Spelman, not too long before my mother passed away, is when I left and went to Spelman. Now, what I didn't share in the earlier videos is that one of my mother's dear friends is a Spelman graduate. And her graduation year and my graduation year would have been parallel. We would have been parallel alums. And so every year when we celebrated had our alumni celebration, we were going to be there, Spelmanites on campus, and at the celebratory events. Every time they did the celebration, our years were on the same years. And she was super excited that I was going. She was very proud of me. She met my stepfather and I down. She helped me move into Abbey Hall on Spelman campus. I mean, this woman was supportive. Very, very supportive. Until she wasn't. She was upset that I was leaving Spelman. She was upset that I wanted to be an artist. She was upset that I did not take her advice to go and get a degree in economics so that I could at least learn how to run business for this art business. I don't know. And have something to fall back on. She was not pleased at all. And she told me that I could go to art school after I had graduated from Spelman and got the prestige, and then I could follow my dream. The funny thing is that she, like my stepfather, didn't understand that this wasn't a dream. I didn't even know what I was dreaming about. I had no idea what it was. It was a call. And I couldn't explain what it was because, frankly, I had no idea. I just knew that the Lord had positioned me, designed me, and created me to go do this. And so I was pursuing it. And so very, very shortly after I fought my stepfather to be able to go to this school, I then had to fight with my mom's friend. And actually there was a season where they overlapped because my dad was like, you got to talk some sense into this girl. She is not thinking clearly, okay? And she tried to talk some sense into me. And you can't talk sense into somebody who knows that they're called to do something, because the sense of the Lord is in me, not man's sense. And so I left. And when I left, that was the last time. I left Spelman in December 2000. And that was the last time that she talked to me. I have not talked to her in 25 years. Not even a hello, how you doing, happy birthday, or anything. I have no idea. I fell off I fell out of existence. And it's interesting because I'm not mad about it. In fact, I appreciate her resistance because her resistance reminded me that I could really care less about her approval or anybody else's approval. I knew that God had called me to do something bigger than me, outside of me, and different. And so I pursued that. I realized that growing up, I was always an artist. I used to paint acrylics on canvas, my favorite thing. I used to do figurines, clay figurines and everything, glaze them, kiln drying them. I would do acrylics on the clay forms and statues. Like, I've always been into art and the creative. It just terrified my family and my family friends because I was about to pursue a creative degree and they just thought I was going to be a starving artist. And in the previous video, I talked about Abraham and how God told him to go away, like leave his land and go to a place where he would tell him when he got there. And I can imagine some of his family and friends were like, so what you gonna eat when you get there? Where you going? Do they have water where you're going? Do they have resources where you're going? How are you gonna survive? How are you gonna work? And wait a minute, you don't know where you're going. Can you imagine the conversations as he was getting everything prepared to leave, to go to a place that he didn't know? I'm telling you, people everywhere are always going to resist you. And the thing is that they think that they have your best interest at heart. And the truth is, it's that they do. The trouble is that unless they pray and they talk to the Lord and they know what's going on with him and his decision, and God gives them insight, they really have no idea at all. And their good intention to help you can actually hinder you from moving to where God has called you to be. And I wasn't going to let these people be a hindrance to me. Now, you would think, as I continue to naively think, that resistance was over. And that now that I've gone on, now that I'm working and I'm doing well, and I started my business and it was moving, and I was getting good clients and everything. And my husband at the time, like, seemed like he was supportive, and then he was not. And I was like, wait, where did this rock come from? What's happening here? You know, I would tell you, some people don't have an understanding of what this entrepreneurial life is like. Because, honey, it is not peaches and roses. I am convinced that God uses entrepreneurship to teach you about Him, to draw you closer to Him, to let you know that you don't need anything else but Him. Because that's what I've learned over the course of the last 15 years in entrepreneurship. That that my trust is in the Lord. And even when my trust wavers, and it has, I have to quickly realign myself, reposition myself, and go back to the Father. You got to reposition yourself and say, wait a minute, I'm called. As I said, my former husband was very supportive, and he was not supportive at all, because he did not understand that it takes grit, faith, determination, discipline, patience, time, faith, hope, faith. I keep saying faith because it takes a whole lot of faith, okay, to be an entrepreneur. He just didn't realize that. And so because of that, he was not supportive. And he was like, you got to quit. You got to quit. You got to find a job. You got to do something different. This ain't working. What are we doing? I mean, it was no good, okay? But God didn't tell me to quit. Now, did I go and get a part-time job to do some things? For sure. But did I quit? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then when he and I were no longer together, and you would think, now I'm free. Now the resistance should be gone, right? No. Now I'm free. Now I'm single. Now I'm living this single life. Was jamming, okay? Living my single life. Kicking it with the Lord and just living it up, right? Doing well in my business. I'm talking about on the day of my divorce, okay? I got, I'm walking out of the courthouse. I just signed papers. I'm walking out of the courthouse. I get a phone call, and it's like, hey, Sarissa, I need a designer. And it was a 5-figure project. I get in my car. I sit down in the car. I open up my email. I got a email from an old client, and it's like, hey, Sarissa, I need you to come and do this project. And it was another 10-figure project. Like, it was wild. I was like, this is great. And then a couple of months later, that kind of faded. And business took a downturn. And my spiritual mentor was like, girl, you just need to quit. Like, you need to, you have tried to do this business for so long, and it has not worked, and I don't even know why you keep trying to do it, and it is time for you to quit. I mean, you just need to hang it up and say, okay, Lord, I did what you told me to do, but it is not working, so I'm gonna just hang it up. Now, No. Some days did I think about quitting? Yes. Some days I think about quitting now. The business, but I can't quit design because I know I'm called to that. But I'm also called to the business as well. I'm also called to entrepreneurship as well. And even though sometimes it's a living hell, and it is, I still have to remind myself that the Lord called me to this, so He will bring me through this. And that is the point. That's the reason why in today's weekday refill, I am talking about resistance and saying that even if man tells you to quit, God never did. So don't do it. Resist. You resist the resistance. You push forward and do what God calls you to do. Because you know what? You have the capacity within you to move. If I could do it through all the adversity that I've been through in my life, I know you can. Because God is not respecter of persons at all. So persist and resist the resistance. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to grow stronger. You're going to grow more firmer in your faith and firmer in your call. Persist, my friend, and have a great day. That's today's weekday refill. I'm excited for tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow for another weekday refill. I pray that you have a blessed day. And I pray that the Lord gives you the strength to be bold and to persist to pursue your call. May God richly bless you.